got a condo in Manhattan. Baby girl, what's happening? You and your invited, so gonna get to clapping. Go pop it for a plan, pop it for me. Turn around and drop it for a plan, drop it for me. I'll rent a beach house in Miami. Wake up with no jammies. Lobster tail for dinner. Julio served that scampi. You got it if you want it. Got it if you want it. Said you got it if you want it. Take my wallet if you want it now. Jump in the Cadillac. Girl, let's put some miles on it. Anything you want, just to put a smile on it. You deserve it, baby. You deserve it all. And I'm gonna give it to you. Gold jewelry shining so bright. Strawberry champagne on us. Lucky for you, that's what I like. That's what I like. Lucky for you, that's what I like. That's what I like. By the fire at night. Silk sheets and diamonds, all white. Lucky for you, that's what I like.
I'm going to talk about a serial homicide case that John Bowles worked with me. In February of 1999, a mom, her daughter, and a friend from Argentina went missing right outside of Yosemite National Park from a little small town called Albertown. And after several months of looking for them, their rental car was located the next month, and it was found to be completely burned out. The arson investigator said that the fire from the car had reached up 25 feet and had reached a temperature of 2,000 degrees. And in the trunk, when our evidence team did the review of the trunk, they found the remainder of 2 bodies. But we were missing 3 victims. The rest of us were out there looking for the 3rd victim. And I'm not sure what day, but a couple weeks later, a body was recovered by a reservoir in Tuolumne County called Don Pedro, and the body turned out to be our 3rd victim, Julie. During this time, the investigation had developed 2 suspects, and one of the 2 suspects had started talking, giving a confession. Now, one detail that he offered could be confirmed. Some people in the investigation felt that he was confessing, and this was the guy. Several of us believed that these guys that were giving these confessions were not the guys, and we had disagreements over how the crime would have happened. And there was just a different position, and it kind of divided the investigation. The investigation became defined by this constant effort to find a confirming detail or some proof that would allow these statements to be considered truth. And it wasn't happening. When the body was found by Don Pedro Reservoir, and they did the body recovery, underneath the body was kind of like an orange fiber, red or orange fiber. They also found similar red and orange fibers, much like consistent is the word, to the one under the body. And so they started reporting that the case had been solved and these guys were the ones. That red fiber that was consistent with fibers found on the subjects or the people, the suspects, was accepted to be the proof, and thereby their statements were then accepted as truth. So the question becomes, is proof truth? And sure enough, there was another murder in Yosemite. And this time, the victim, the all females, had been beheaded. In 1973, Stephen Stainer was abducted from Merced, which is a town about 3 hours south of here. And he was gone. Just gone. Nobody knew what happened to him. He was gone. And for the most part, presumed dead. In 1980, another 7-year-old boy is abducted. And about 2 weeks after the abduction, the boy shows up at a sheriff's substation down in Mariposa County, along with Stephen Stainer, who was the boy abducted 7 years earlier. They interviewed this witness. I didn't know it at the time, but at the time, they developed this witness as a suspect. There were a lot of things that caused it to appear as if he was the person who was at least responsible for the murder that occurred at the end of July in Yosemite. Didn't know any of this. I was home. My boys were away that weekend, And Lori planned on a romantic weekend for the two of us, which is a lot of pressure on the guys. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. For the next 6 hours, John and I interviewed this guy and got an unbelievable full confession. But at the end of the day, just like the other guys, it's a confession. We don't know that it's true. Now, things he said matched up with things we knew, but there were also things he said that didn't match up with things we knew. So we asked him the next day, would he come with us and take us to recover all the evidence from the crime? And he agreed. And the next day, he recovered all the evidence from the crime, and it was a done deal, except for the heartbreak and the sorrow and the tragedy, which continued on. But he produced all of the missing evidence. He accounted for what had happened, and that's why we believed him. In law enforcement, when you're talking about a crime, you need to have enough truth so that 12 people will listen to it and believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that it is in fact the truth. I believe that law enforcement is about truth, finding truth. When we came to Sacramento, my oldest son was critically ill, catastrophically ill. And it changed something in me, it changed something in my life. And what it changed for us was the truth of our lives. And that was that we wanted to mean as much to others as the people who helped us with our son meant to us. A year and a half after we got here, I responded to a child abduction. And I worked with the local law enforcement, and from that, we recovered the baby in 4 days. And so the truth that you search for in law enforcement can be different. I'll give you an example how truth can be varied to help and to hurt. So in the case of the Yosemite case, where the 4th victim had her head was beheaded, this woman got in the elevator with us, and she asked me who I was, and I said, I'm Jeff Reineck, and she broke down crying, kind of fell to her knees and said, no one will tell her what happened to her daughter. So she's looking to me for truth, right? And I'm looking not to hurt her. So Lori and Joe and I take her down to our room. We bring her in the room, and Lori and Joe leave. And she says, I want to know what happened to my daughter. Now, do I give her the details? Your daughter's head was cut off, and this is how it happened, and this is what you did. I couldn't do that. I don't have that in me. So I didn't tell her the detailed version of the truth. I gave her a different version of the truth. I said to her, if your daughter were alive and you were with her and you gave her a choice of living, but the cost of her life would be others would die, or sacrificing herself, and by doing that she would save other lives, what would she do? And her mom said, well, she'd sacrifice herself, that's what she did. And I said to her, that's exactly what happened here. Your daughter struggled to survive, to fight for life, her quest to live, and the way she cherished life caused him to make mistakes that brought me together with him. And I was a tool of your daughter to reveal what this person had done. So your daughter is the one that made this resolve. Your daughter's the reason that there's someone here being prosecuted. And she was grateful for that. And I told her the truth. But the question is, what degree of truth? Now, someone who's black and white in their feelings would say, okay, well, your daughter didn't go through the litany of what happened to her. But I believe that every victim family and every victim, in trying to get over what's happened to them, tries to find a value from it, something that's changed because of what's happened that has made the world or themselves better off. And this woman went on knowing that because of her daughter, other victims would not happen. And it was directly because of her daughter to her. So does that mean I was not telling the truth? What do you think? The truth, to me, is always shocking. We had a case with 22 children. 22 children. The boys had one father, the girls had another father. One lived here in Sacramento, the other lived down in Fort Worth. And many of these victims live up here right by us, and we see them frequently. Lori and I have gone to help them, go to their weddings, to their things, and yet their father beat them to within inches of their life. And the girls that were in Fort Worth were sent out to Sacramento to be physically assaulted by the man here, and the boys in Sacramento were sent down to Fort Worth to be sexually assaulted by the guy down there. And we're talking about beginning age of around 6 years old. So when you hear this truth from a child, it shocks you.
Okay.
Everybody has different ways of getting the truth, or what they think will be the truth. For law enforcement, sometimes that's a confession. So the question is, how do you get that truth? What do you have to do? And this is where in law enforcement, everybody kind of has their own thing. Now, calligraphers, they administer a test by a machine that measures a person's physiological response when they're answering a question. And the philosophy is that if you give a person this test and it shows that they're lying, then that person is guilty. But are they really? I would submit to you that, in my experience, 9 times out of 10, people that are not shown to be deceptive, those tests are okay. But I also believe 6 times out of 10, when a person is shown to be deceptive, that they're not answering appropriately or that they're physiologically fired up because of a different issue. Now, John Bowles and I, we had a case with a guy who was found to be harboring child pornography on his hard drive. But he wasn't arrested for that. He was arrested for white-collar crime. So John and I went in there and we did what we do. We just like I'm sitting here talking to you guys, that's the way I sit and talk to everybody. And after a while of interviewing this guy, John and I looked at each other and felt like there was something wrong. He found out that the digital hard drive that contained the pornography did not actually belong to the guy. It belonged to our computer lab guy, and he had forgotten to take all this stuff off it. So in this case, we were lucky. But he did not dwell on polygraph. I believe that 9 people out of 10 are good people, or they have feelings and they care. I search in the other person for what's value in them, what's good in them. I seek their value. And then I explain to them that they have the ability to find value, to understand value for themselves by telling the truth.
I got a condo in Manhattan. Baby girl, what's happening? You and your invited, so gonna get to clapping. Go